All right, so the first thing that I want to cover today is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy and how we as gun owners can find out sometimes that our friends are not our friends. As I stated last week, I believe that the purpose of the Feinstein firearms bill is to never be passed, to never see the light of day, to never come out of committee, to never go anywhere. And all of this gun ban proposal talk is just to scare the hell out of gun owners so that we'll compromise into something that's not quite as bad. And that there were certain things that they would try to do, and one would be closing the gun show loophole, and that they would do it in a way that didn't close the gun show loophole, that actually closed the ability for private people to sell their firearms independently to each other, completely and totally, and that it would be very hard to actually to fight and win against that fight this time, and that there would be other things. So I found this bill that was introduced on December 31st, 2012. The bill is H.R. 6725. Again, H.R. 6725. You can look it up on GovTrack. The bill was introduced by Representative James Moran, who is a Democrat from Virginia, from the 8th District. Now, I know what you're thinking, a Democrat from the 8th District of Virginia. That probably means that this is some onerous gun legislation that only the crazy liberals on the left would come up with. This is actually the NRA Members Gun Safety Act. Yep, that's what it's called, the NRA Members Gun Safety Act. So this is supposed to be the common sense stuff that even the NRA members can get behind. And if you read it, you'll find a lot of what they're wanting to do isn't that bad. I'm going to give you a summary since they didn't prepare a freaking summary. I think you should have to always prepare a summary to go with your bills to introduce it. But again, you can look it up again on govtrack.us, HR 6725. I'll put a link in the video notes and the show notes for today as well. But basically what it does is it strengthens the background checks. Where did we hear that before? On anybody that wants to buy a gun. I'm not really opposed to that. Because when they say strengthen the background checks, they basically mean the exact background checks that are already run, that the databases are all fragmented and bringing them together. I am okay with that. Because that procedure already exists. Basically they're saying, let's do a better job of it. But where it starts to get gray is that it states that you can no longer basically sell your gun to your friend privately at all. That's the quote-unquote gun control loophole. So now you have this NRA members law, and I don't know if the NRA really endorses this. This could, I mean, I just found this law. This guy could be an NRA member and call it that. But something doesn't feel right about that name being on there and it totally being disassociated with the NRA. Something stinks here. And there is some chatter online about the NRA supporting this, so we'll see. But it would basically make it illegal for me to sell you my gun. Not at a gun show, anywhere. And this is what people don't understand. There is no gun show loophole. That is a lie given to you guys by the liberal media. And I'm speaking mostly to those on YouTube that may have not seen the show before. Most of the people that listen to my show every day know this. The gun control loophole is simply that private citizens can go to a gun show and sell their gun without running it through a licensed federal firearms dealer, which sounds like, well, that's a loophole. But I can go to your house and sell you my gun. You can come to my house and sell me your gun. We can meet in a Starbucks parking lot and I can sell you a gun privately and individually. Now, if you think that's a problem, then that's open for debate. And we can debate that. And we can decide whether or not that should be allowed. I personally think it should, but I can understand the concerns of people that say that it shouldn't be. But let's call it what it is, the private selling of firearms. Because here's how it works at a gun show. In a gun show, there'll be a group of tables. That group of tables will generally be somewhere in the kind of the side or the back. And those will be people that are private sellers. They're not in the business of selling firearms, but they have 10 or so guns. They're willing to rent a table. And they're there just like any other private citizen, except they've rented a table. When they talk about the gun control loophole, or the gun show loophole, that's the essence of it. What they lead you to believe is that when you go into a gun show, you can just buy guns all over the place. 99% of the guns at a gun show are being sold by licensed dealers, and they have to go through the same background check that you would go through at any store that you would go to buy a gun. Period. End of story. What else happens at gun shows? And the reason this is a good thing for a gun owner. If I have a gun I'd like to sell, and I don't want to be in kind of an unsafe environment, meeting a guy at Starbucks or something, And I go to a gun show, I have hundreds of dealers and thousands of people that might want to buy my gun. I can walk around with, I'll go in, there's always a police officer at the front, they check your weapon, they make sure it's clear, they lock the trigger so that it cannot be fired with a zip tie, and you better not cut it off because you're in deep crap if you do, and they'll whip you out. And you can walk around with that gun. And anybody can basically walk up to you and say, hey, I'd like to buy that. That saves me from going to a pawn shop and having one person I can possibly sell my gun to and getting a better price. But again, I understand the people that say, if you buy a gun in this country, it's reasonable that we should make sure that you're not a felon, etc., what have you. I can understand it. I disagree with it because the felon is still going to go buy the gun privately. Okay? But I understand. At least I can understand that. What's more dangerous in this bill? Far more dangerous is there is guidance for states as to how they can issue their concealed carry permits. They require that the state only issue concealed carry permits to someone over the age of 21. That person takes some sort of training, and it's loosely written to give the states a great deal of latitude in how they run their concealed carry permit program. And as I was reading it, every line of it seemed to be something that almost every state was already doing that already has a concealed carry permit. Until I got to the one that is despicable and is used in countless countries where people don't have a right to self-defense to impede their right to self-defense. There's a line in there that says that the applicant must show good cause for requesting a concealed carry permit. This is completely unacceptable. Do you know what my good cause is for carrying concealed? To protect myself and others. The end, done. I don't need good cause. That is good cause. Now, the way it's written, your state can determine what good cause is for itself. But that is a place we need to really be careful with. If you start reading this bill, you'll find 90% of it to make sense to you, even if you're a gun owner. And then you'll find 10% that has no business being there. This is the stealth attack. Now, will it be H.R. 6725 that these guys bring forward? I don't know. But I bet you it'll be something like this. This has the exact types of provisions in it. There is no restriction on guns per se individual in it. But it does tighten up who can buy a gun in the current system. And I'll tell you what, even me, I have an issue with the fact that someone that should not be able to buy a gun can legally, in essence, buy a gun. And it's not true, though. Because if you're not supposed to have a gun, it's illegal for you to have a gun. Therefore, it's illegal for you to buy a gun. And this is what a lot of people just won't seem to get through their thick skulls. Laws only apply to law-abiding citizens. Criminals don't care about laws. But here's a perfect example of a bill that is a subversive bill that goes in and applies language against our rights in a way that just doesn't make a lot of sense.